How much did data center stock GLW go up in the last 2 weeks? And how much would you have made on a $10,000 investment if you sold near the top at 160? See what ChatGPT could tell us. About a 20% return, almost $2,000 in really about 7 days. I've never released this publicly before, but this is an inside look at my one-to-one stock coaching. I have daily calls like this all the time with beginner, intermediate, and advanced 6 to 7 figure investors that just ask me questions specifically about stocks. Here's a little taste of what that looks like. If you'd like more material like this, I actually have a whole bunch like it completely for free if you go to the video tab on my YouTube and sort by oldest videos first. And then if you want to be a part of this tomorrow, we run these every single weekday. You can also apply to work with me down below if you're ready to take your stock investing to the next level and if you qualify for the $25 trial. So this is the very technical mechanics of getting a fine entry on a good daily chart in a good theme. This is data center, optoelectronics connections, fiber optic. So how did I find this? I mean, I just went through it. Wednesday, February 18th. Here's the SPY. It's been choppy. Here are the most liquid names with volume moving right now, up a percentage that's notable given how much they relatively move on average. Relative change today. This is on earnings, so I'm ignoring this. So anything that's really moving, I'm going to see it here. This is on earnings as well. I'm going to ignore that. Devon's on earnings as well from after hours. This is not on earnings, but it's a little liquid, and it's also a terrible pattern. It's like a bounce. Corning, this could be good actually. Yeah, this is good. So what's good about it, right? It made a move on earnings. It actually held that. It did undercut it, but you might got chopped out if you bought directly here, or bought directly here, got chopped out. Whatever. We're not talking about buying here. We're talking about here. There's a level here. There's a little resistance here. And in terms of the market right now, this is pretty good. So yeah, trade of the day right now, GLW. Already had a little bit of pullback. So actually, as you're seeing this now, this would be relatively strong opportunity. Risking 1%, maybe risking below, but 1% could be pretty safe. The spread is great, about 40 cents, 50 cents. So risking $1 is fine. You're not going to get stopped that easily. You have a second to put your stop in. So this is the very technical mechanics of getting a fine entry on a good daily chart in a good theme. This is data center, optoelectronics connections, fiber optic. So how did I find this? I mean, I just went through it, right? We looked at things that are moving the most today. I disqualified a lot of them. The ones that just recently had earnings. This could get sold into, sometimes they just go, but tend to like to let those close on the day. Look through others disqualified as well. Obviously, this is changing since we looked at it, a minute ago, but this is okay. I don't really want to no man's land. Maybe if it was here, you could buy it on a dip, but I don't like buying on dips anyway. Home builders are definitely in theme. This is another earnings though, so ignoring that. Again, just looking over here. This looks way too illiquid. So let's ignore this regardless of how it works. Regional banks carry. It's okay. Left side peak, undercut it slightly, held the moving average. Yeah, it's okay. Volume's solid too. again, so what am I saying when I say something's okay? I'm saying, if you took an entry here, 1 out of 5 times it'll work for you, meaning you won't get stopped out. It won't take a 1% move down and stop you out. And it could continue on, it might chop, but it could continue on, get you that, 3%, maybe a 1%, 2% cushion overnight, ideally, but even 1%. And then, maybe it gaps down 0.5%. I'm just giving a scenario here. So what does these last 3 days look like? Well, we can't make an exact analog, but let's say it's something like, taking an entry here, right? So you have some cushion. Ultimately, you do get some gap down. It comes back near your average. Excuse me. But it doesn't hit it and then continues on. Okay. So at some point you're up 10%, 15%. So for 30 days, it's slow. I'm not recommending carry. There's a reason I didn't choose it, but I'm just saying it's an opportunity right now. Now, this is the opportunity I mentioned, and this is more closely resembling, you have a high volume close, you buy it when it gets over, you get 10% in a few days. Does that always happen? No, but how the math works is, I'd love for it to be just like, everyone knows exactly what stock to pick on a given day. That's not real, but we do have little hints. And so best hedge funds are, right, a little more than other people. And when they are right, they're really, really right. So how can that be the case that you can only be right 1 out of 5 times and, make money? Well, because you get moves like this 17%. And then when you lose, you lose 1%, and that's the big differentiator. And that's why on the stocks community page, I talk about never bag holding again, because that's really what differentiates. It's not really, contrary to what we want to believe, what popular belief is. It's not really knowing exactly what stock is going to go up on a given day. It's about, knowing a little better, just a tiny bit better than everyone else, and then taking these 1% losses. If it be 4 times, it's a 4% loss in aggregate, right? And then on the 5th time, you make up for that 4% with a 15% gain. So you're definitely making money. So that's how this all sort of ties together, and how the best people in the world do this. And it's hard right now. It's a choppy environment right now. These top stocks are not that interesting. Is this light exciting? Sure. This was probably the biggest move today. This is kind of why we do this, right? Why I talk about buying at opening range and risking 1%, because, if you get in here, you risk 1%, maybe you get stopped out, but maybe you get in here, you risk 1%. It's actually, we're looking at a 1 minute, so I should just look at a 1 minute as well. See exactly what we're talking about here. This is actually real inside baseball here. This didn't go up until like 9:36, so we might not have seen this, right? It was up 3%. Thing moves on average 1%, so it still might have ended up on this, top of this scan in terms of relative change on the day versus how much it tends to move. But look, so you get in here, somewhere in here, you risk 1%, you're fine, just barely. Maybe you get stopped out on this. Actually, it's actually really shit's great depending on where you get in. That's reality. But you're up 10%, right, on the day. Pretty incredible. So are you always going to pick the one that does the best? Definitely not. But that's a pretty clear example of what happens when it works. Okay. GLW, trade of the day, did come back so far, but that either is going to give you a better entry or it's going to stop you out. And all you can really know is try this, right? Try it. And getting traction in this environment is extremely difficult. But if you are able to get a little bit of traction or just be break even in this environment, um, you're developing the exact same skills, the exact same process for, when you're getting in October, not October, August, September, around here, and you get these moves, 4% on the SPY in, 14 days, or, somewhere over here, September, similar, right? 4% in 16 days, and then there's, what's driving that? Well, a lot of names are sort of melting up a little bit, but there's some names that are significantly melting up, right? So this is actually October, but it's 130% in 10 days, or QBTS. This is a little earlier. This is September, 200%, 184%, 35 days. So that, when you catch that, now it starts to make sense, right? Why you can have 1% losses, right? Again and again and again, and then trail with a moving average, get in. I don't have an exit target per se, right? I'm just in a stock, and then maybe I've trimmed some here. I'm feeling like, oh, I shouldn't have trimmed it when it's up here, right? But then it comes down. I'm like, oh, thank goodness I trimmed it, right? And then here I'm like, you know what? Maybe I just ought to sell out. But I have a rule, right? I trail with a moving average. This one, in fact, this is a 28 moving average, so it doesn't hit it. It goes up. And now I'm thinking, maybe I skip a few days, whatever. I look at my phone and I'm like, oh, that QBDS is doing great. And then it goes up. I'm like, this is great. Maybe I should take profits. Comes back down a little. I'm just saying this is actually how I think and how everyone thinks, really. Except the difference between everyone and, the best people in the world who are trading is they have rules where they have the same emotions, right? It's just that they don't let them rule their decision making. So it comes back and they say, oh man, I really should sell, but it hasn't hit this yet. So maybe they're able to trim some up here, but maybe they also sell out here, when it hits that moving average anyway. So after that run, would it be great to sell at 170? It would be good, but 97 is pretty good too. So that is how that works, right? But again, right now, this is sort of a building skills time, and this is a good stock. Out of all the universe of stocks, GLW, in my view, is the one to look at. Yeah, we just looked at this. This is a liquid 5 we haven't looked at yet, but it's a little liquid. It's definitely okay, like daily chart wise. And that chart would want to get in up here. If it was this day, it'd be a different story, but Goldman just moves too slow. You don't really want to be messing with these banks in general. Just figure someone who deals in banks is going to do better with those. This is slow moving. Eat, I don't know. It's kind of been chopping on for a while. Just banks, right? We're seeing it. It's definitely stocks move in themes. Funds buy a whole bunch of stocks at once, or they buy an ETF that holds a whole bunch of stocks at once. That is how sector rotation works. Deckers. See if this is liquid. Not really. Yeah, so it's just not a lot cooking. GLW. When there is stocks cooking, sometimes, NVIDIA can be up here, right? And when they cook, they cook. Like this is $24 billion of volume, 30 billion, 60 billion. And this is up a lot. This is 15%, 3 days. So, yep. And would it be great to always get the, 90, 100%? Be great, but you don't need it because there's so much liquidity on a stock like this that you don't actually need percent up. What you need is percent up versus risk level. So if you risk 1/3%, which you can on NVIDIA, because it's so liquid, the spread is, you can see the spread here between the bid and the ask, B&A, right? It's like 1 cent, 2 cents. So you can risk 10 cents easily, have plenty of time to put a stop in, oftentimes have it not be hit, and you know, you're risking 10 cents to make $25. I mean, that's a 250 to 1 risk reward. That's an extreme, bit of an unrealistic example, but even, $1 to make $25. So it's more about the spread versus the price of the stock and the liquidity, which is another word for volume, rather than the percent. However, there are also story themes. NVIDIA is less of a story theme. Well, there was the whole Saudi Arabia is buying, or UAE, whatever. Jensen went over there, and NVIDIA stock went up significantly over that time. That was all through here. That was like 30% or something. But again, you only need those massive stories if you're trading with billions of dollars or $1 billion. So that's why, it's not as exciting, but, that's why we look at stocks like this sometimes. You can't put $1 billion in here. I mean, this entire candle is 500 million, right? But plenty for us. All right, so that is probably going to wrap it up for today. GLW, is it extended? Maybe, but was it extended here? Maybe. Did it go up another 40%, 50%? It did. So hope that helps. Watch this recording. If you're just joining Stocks Community, go back and watch the recordings. I mean, they're 15 minutes. They're pretty fast, right? You can play them at 2x speed probably. If you need a Chrome extension or whatever browser you use extension to play videos faster, let me know. Or post in the market questions. Oh boy, ticker questions. Yeah, I think I've showed this several times, so I don't really need to show it. But there's an ask questions section with market questions and ticker questions. You can ask them there, and then I'll talk about them on the stream. Otherwise, I will see you live on the next stream when you can ask your questions here as well. All right, thanks so much. Hope this helps. See you next one.